Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. I am not a sweets person, but when I tell you I was appalled by American Whoppers, not the burgers, but those waxy, choco-flavored balls of candy betrayal, I'm not exaggerating. It was extremely disappointing. And when I was pregnant several years ago, one of the only locally owned places where I could get real chocolate Maltesers, which is what childhood me grew up eating in Canada, and what Gravid with Child Me needed at the time, was Global Foods Market. I also found scads of other items of splendidly international provenance in its aisles. So when I heard about their new cookbook project in collaboration with the International Institute of St. Louis, it got my mouth watering and my tummy rumbling. Global Foods Market and the International Institute are calling on St. Louisans to share recipes from their very own kitchens, which include ingredients that are not found in conventional American grocery stores. We got to speak with Ari Obinson, President and CEO at the International Institute of St. Louis, about the origins of this project. It came about between the already existing relationship between his organization and Global Foods Market.
Global Food Market has been a strong supporter of the International Institute. As you know, the International Institute has for over 100 years welcomed people from all over the world to our city. And particularly when the Afghans were arriving in 2021, the Global Food Market started out this initiative because we realized that the Afghans needed the spices that they're used to, and they couldn't just find it in any other grocery store. And so the Global Food Market actually started out this great idea of like a spice drive, which was intended to be donated to our Afghan new arrivals. And the relationship with Global Market, therefore, grew in that regard, and a conversation was started about what if all of these recipes from different parts of the world were cataloged in such a way that anyone in this community could get access to recipes of meals from different parts of the world and find a store that could provide the ingredients or the spices that was needed, i.e. Global Food Market. So that's where the idea originated, and I think it's one of the many gems that we have in this community that we can capitalize on, just the different cultures that are here and the access that we have in this community. It's the rich diversity of St. Louis that we need to talk a lot more about. And so this book is one way in which we're capturing that diversity and making it accessible to the people.
And Ari told us that when the Afghan refugees were getting settled, he learned just how important a certain food staple is in their culture and what it meant to be able to have a familiar dish in unfamiliar surroundings.
When the Afghans arrived St. Louis, many of them were put in transitional housing in hotels. And I went out one of the days to meet with the new arrivals at the hotels, and I had all of these men sitting with me in the lobby, and I was saying, what is the one way in which we can really make you feel at home here in St. Louis? And everybody around said Afghan bread. And forgive my ignorance at the time, I didn't really know that was a thing. And I went down, they explained to me how bread was really important for every meal. So every meal will be important if you start by having Afghan bread. And I can tell you that the day that we got the Afghan bread to them, you could see a huge transformation in just how they appreciated St. Louis. A little thing like that Afghan bread changed the dynamics of their journey into St. Louis.
The cookbook that Global Foods Market and the International Institute of St. Louis are collaborating on will benefit the efforts of the International Institute, which include immigration assistance that helps folks settle into their new home here, English language classes, and career training. But Ari hopes everyone can learn from and relate to these new neighbors, starting with trying a new dish.
I am hoping that the entire community has access to this cookbook. That this cookbook becomes a window to a whole new world that lives next door. That this cookbook tells a story of how diverse this community is and how through gastronomy we can find our way to each other, understanding those various cultures that have come from around the world to paint this tapestry that's called St. Louis, and how we can connect at that level. And it all begins with experimenting with these various meals and finding a way to connect with those cultures and finding a way to have an experience with those various cultures. We hope that it doesn't just end as a cookbook that sits on the shelf, that it's a journey, that it begins with these recipes, but then it ends with getting an experience, for example, at the Festival of Nations, where we hope this year to have over 75 countries of the world present with their culture and food, and that everybody can be part of. But this is all within the context or the construct of what we're trying to achieve together, making St. Louis a more welcoming and prosperous community by our embrace of multiculturalism.
That was Ari Obenson, President and CEO at the International Institute of St. Louis, talking about the origins and hopes for their new cookbook project that just recently launched. And with us in studio is the other half of this multicultural, globally gastronomic cookbook project, Shane Propisel, Chief Officer of Operations at Global Foods Group. Shane, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Elaine. It's my pleasure.
Now, we just heard some clips from Ari about how this cookbook project came to be from his perspective. Why did Global Foods Group decide to step in and lend their help? And what are some of the really personal connections that you have?
Yeah, so we've been working with the Institute for quite some time now, both with Ari and his predecessor, Anna Crossland. I have the privilege of actually living down the street from the Institute, so I see firsthand every day in my neighborhood, the types of services and assistance they're giving a lot of people. And unfortunately for a lot of the folks who are being resettled here, they're coming from places of trauma and conflict. And, we think that for a lot of folks who are in that situation, they can't control a lot of the things, but maybe one of the things that makes that transition a little bit easier is the food they're able to eat. And, we are in a unique position being an international market, being able to both procure and distribute and sell these unique ingredients that makes kind of being resettled to a brand new place a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm. And what is your family's story of coming to St. Louis, and how is it related to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I'm first-generation American. Both my parents are immigrants from Thailand. And, it's one of those stories where I think it can only really happen in America. They're actually from two very different corners of the country, and they only met because they were both in the U.S. My father came to study at St. Louis University. My mom was in Chicago at the time, and, kind of like a lot of immigrant stories, they ran out of money and they needed to work and to make a living. And at the time, and I think the Institute kind of played a role in this, my parents found a niche of selling groceries to the newly arriving Vietnamese community that arrived after the Vietnam War. and similar to what we're trying to do now, just finding foodstuffs for folks who have been coming from trauma and conflict to kind of resettle and make that their transition a little bit better. So as the years have passed, we've been able to expand our businesses, and now we have 2 international grocery stores and 4 restaurants.
It's quite a lot. What are those?
Yeah, we have United Provisions, which is another international market located in the Del Mar Loop. We have Chow Ban, which is it's a regional Thai restaurant in the Grove. King and I is probably our first business that's really well known in St. Louis. It's the first Thai restaurant, which is on South Grand. And we have 2 Japanese restaurants in St. Louis County, Oishi Sushi in Creve Coeur and Oishi Steakhouse in Chesterfield.
Oishi delicious.
Yes, exactly.
Now, this cookbook project, it does involve some restaurants. It is in its infancy, and you've just started calling out for recipe submissions. What is the restaurant connection?
So, I think in St. Louis, we were very fortunate to have access to one of the most diverse and dynamic restaurant scenes of anywhere in the country. And I think most St. Louisans have now, have a favorite Indian restaurant, Vietnamese restaurant, Japanese restaurant. And for us, we're able to play kind of a supporting role by being able to provide these unique ingredients to these chefs. And so, some of these ingredients that obviously aren't grown locally, we're able to procure both internationally, from the coast, and we're kind of thinking about, the St. Louis as a region and the restaurant scene doesn't get a lot of the respect I think it deserves, and people just don't realize how diverse it is. So by inviting the diversity of the region to submit their own recipes, both make our fellow St. Louisans aware of what a great diverse food scene we have, as well as the rest of the country.
Mm-hmm. So you want everyday people's recipes as well. What are you looking for in the submissions, and are there any requirements?
There's nothing in particular. I think talking to a lot of people, people really show their personality and love through food. I love restaurant food. Obviously working in the industry, but some of my favorite things, some of my favorite memories is home cooked meals from my aunt or my grandma. Sometimes recipes are sometimes it's too complex to cook in a restaurant. So, just getting people to kind of reach back into their memory bank and, what are these memories and smells and tastes that really move you, to share them with us if they're willing, so that, all of St. Louis kind of can learn about it, try it for themselves, and we're encouraging folks, tell us the memories, send photos. Like, why is this recipe so important? Obviously, I'm sure it would taste delicious, but there's always a narrative and a story behind these types of submissions.
And is that what compelled you about this idea? Like, who brought it up?
We were kind of talking, and, Ari had kind of mentioned, we've had this long-standing relationship, and talking about, how can we make life a little bit easier for these new Americans coming over and when they settled in? I think it's very easy for folks to feel othered, and I've always believed that food is a really unifying factor, and I see it in the aisles of my stores every day. We have folks speaking 4 or 5 different languages. Someone asking someone, "Hey, I've never used this before. How do you use it?" And people just light up. They love having that interaction, that connection about being able to share a piece of themselves. Mm-hmm. And so, we were kind of throwing this idea around it, and we approached the Institute, said, hey, a big part of your mission is to really integrate these folks into our community. Food is the best way, and for us, we're always looking for ways to support the Institute, financially in any way we can. So it really came about that way.
In the years of your experience, how have you seen food, which is something that you consume, right? It's a product. How has it led to something deeper than what you put in your mouth?
Yeah, I would say, I'm from St. Louis originally, and the St. Louis that I grew up in is very different than the St. Louis that we live in now. I think my business wouldn't be able to be successful unless people, went out of their comfort zone, were trying new things. My joke is now, before maybe it was meatloaf on Monday, mac and cheese on Tuesday, steak on Wednesday. Now, Monday night's Indian night, Tuesday night's Mexican night, and so on and so forth. So people are really interested in food as a ways to understand people and to travel themselves. I think now with how pretty straightforward international travel is, people are going to these countries and they're trying these new flavors, and when they get back home they're like, gosh, I would love to be able to replicate that or try that. And so kind of with the ways St. Louis has changed and diversified, it's just a reflection of St. Louis as our community. So I don't try to say it's ethnic food or international food. It's just reflective of the people who are living in our region.
Shane Propisal is Chief Officer of Operations of Global Foods Group, which includes Global Foods Market in Kirkwood. And we're talking about a collaborative project that you are doing with International Institute, crowdsourcing, basically, right? Now, we talked earlier very briefly, and you said that you are a boomerang. So you're a St. Louis native, and you came back. And then just a moment ago, you were talking about the St. Louis you grew up in versus the St. Louis we live in now. What is it that brought you back here? And why do you do now what you are doing?
Yeah, I think not unlike a lot of my peers who've grown up here, we always thought there was, for at least speaking for myself, kind of wanted to get out, be anywhere but here. So went to university on the East Coast and spent some time living in other cities. But so my personal reason and story is that, as you get older, I've come to realize how important global food is to folks who shop there. And, I've worked summer jobs there, and I've always seen my parents work there, but, it was a job. And then understanding and realizing the impact that it has on folks who, again, talking about coming from trauma, coming from conflict, coming from a place that's not familiar, to have that resource of an international grocer to help them ease the transition to being St. Louisans really spoke to me. So, I came back, and again, it's just a whole new different type of industry now. I think food has kind of gone through this transformation of, you had mentioned, it used to be, you have to eat, you have to eat to survive, and now people are interested in where food comes from, why people eat certain foods, what's the origin, what are the religious and social implications. And so for me, I'm a political science major by training, so it kind of scratches my, intellectual curiosity as well, and it's, again, it's a very tasty job. I have no complaints.
So this book project is going to go on for about a year or so. Now, let's pretend you have nothing to do with this cookbook. You're just a dude that loves food, loves to cook or eat, and you're hearing about this for the first time. What dish from your kitchen, and not necessarily Thai, right? What dish from your kitchen would you submit to this cookbook?
So I'm going to cheat. It is a Thai dish, but this dish is, for me, I think two things really speak to me. I think one of it is the difficulty of preparing it. So we would really only make this dish kind of on feast days. So we would get all my family together. We'd all help each other, chop and slice and fry. And I think secondly, it's the memories of my grandma helped raise me, and so this was kind of our special occasion dish that she would make for good grades or birthdays. And the name of the dish is khao tot, which is a crispy Thai rice salad. Has about 15 ingredients, 16 different seasonings. And it's one of those things where we actually serve it at Chao Ban because I was like, a lot of people make good pad thai, a lot of people make good tom yum, but no one in St. Louis is really doing this. And as I travel, not a lot of Thai restaurants nationally are doing it. And so this is something where I was really passionate about that I would love to share.
Shane Propisal is the COO of Global Foods Group. Thanks for talking with us about your cookbook collaboration to benefit the International Institute. Global Foods Market is collecting recipes featuring international ingredients from the public kitchen and from the kitchens of some of your favorite STL restaurants. A portion of proceeds from the cookbook sales will benefit the International Institute of St. Louis's efforts to welcome and support immigrant residents to the region. You can submit your recipes for consideration online. We'll link to the form on our website, stlonair.show.
This episode was produced by Maya Norfleet.
Our audio engineer is Aaron Dorr.
Our production intern is Avery Rogers.
This podcast was mixed and edited by Aaron.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Our podcast proudly supports St. Louis artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.